In 2026, you send a text with 1,000 emojis. In 1995, you sent a riddle. Before the smartphone, we had the pager. It was a tiny black box that didn't have a keyboard, a touchscreen, or a camera. It only did one thing. It showed you a single string of numbers. To survive socially, we had to invent a numerical secret language. If you wanted to tell someone you loved them, you paged 143, the count of letters in I love you. 1 for I, 4 for love, 3 for you. If you were bored and wanted to hang out, you paged 07734, which, when flipped upside down on the tiny screen, spelled hello. It was a cryptic 10-divot puzzle you had to solve in your head while your belt was vibrating. We didn't have 3,000 emojis. We had 10 digits and a level of creativity that Gen Z would find exhausting. You had to memorize codes for your friends, your parents, and your crush. It was the original encrypted chat, and if you didn't know the code, you were locked out of the conversation. In 2026, your devices talk via Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. It's invisible, it's everywhere, and it's boring. In 1995, we had the IR blaster. Every remote had a tiny dark red bulb on the front that shot a literal beam of invisible light. But here was the catch. It was line of sight. This meant that if a single pillow, a coffee table, or even a dog's tail was in the way, the magic died instantly. You had to learn the remote lean. You'd be hanging off the edge of the couch, aiming that remote with sniper-like precision just to change the channel. If the batteries were dying, you didn't just replace them, you pressed the buttons harder, convinced that your physical strength would make the light beam travel further. We were tactical snipers of entertainment, battling invisible physics every single night just to turn up the volume. There was a secret door on every single 90s television. It was called Channel 3. If you wanted to play Super Nintendo or watch a movie, you didn't click a clean input button. You had to manually turn the physical TV dial to 03. That channel didn't belong to a network. It was the portal to your digital world. To get there, you had to learn the art of the coaxial cable, that sharp silver pin that always felt like it was going to break your finger as you screwed it into the back of the TV. If the connection was fuzzy, you didn't call tech support. You just blew on the pin, wiggled the wire until the snow cleared, and prayed. It was a mechanical, physical connection to your entertainment that a wireless world will never truly understand. In 2026, if someone doesn't answer, you leave a DM or a voicemail. In 1995, you hit a literal brick wall. It was called the busy signal. If you called your friend and their sister was on the phone or their dad was on the internet, you didn't get a call waiting notification. You got a loud, aggressive, rhythmic beep, beep, beep. The door was locked. You couldn't break through. There was no leave a message. You had to hang up and try again every 10 minutes like a digital stalker just to see if the line was free. It built a level of patience and absolute frustration that a double blue check will never match. In 2026, you make a playlist with a tap. In 1995, you engineered a masterpiece. We called it the Mix CD. But here was the niche problem. Once you burned those 12 songs onto a blank silver disc, they all looked exactly the same. If you didn't have a Sharpie, your music was anonymous. Every 90s kid had a stack of mystery discs they had to listen to just to find out what was on them. You had to learn the art of the CD marker. If you used a regular ballpoint pen, you'd scratch the delicate data layer and kill the music forever. You had to be a surgeon. One slip of the hand and your summer '98 mix was a shiny coaster. We spent hours carefully lettering the names of bands in block letters, making sure the ink was dry before we put it back in the jewel case. It was our version of graphic design. Gen Z has lossless audio that never stops. We had the skip. If you wanted to listen to music while walking, you had to own a Discman. The box always promised 10-second anti-shock, which was the biggest lie of the decade. If you stepped off a curb too hard or even breathed in the direction of the player, the laser would lose its place. You had to learn the Discman walk. You'd be moving like you were walking on eggshells, holding the player perfectly flat in your palm like a bowl of hot soup to keep the vibe alive. You were a servant to the laser. One bump and your favorite song turned into a glitchy, stuttering nightmare that looped the same half-second of audio until you stood perfectly still again. In 2026, you Google it. In 1995, if you had a school report, you had to face the encyclopedia. This was Google in 24 heavy physical volumes that took up an entire shelf in the living room. If the information wasn't in those specific books, it simply didn't exist to you. There was no search bar. You had to manually flip through 500 paper pages just to find out what a shark ate. If your parents didn't buy the set from a traveling salesman who knocked on your door, you had to walk to a building called a library and hope no one else was using the same volume. Knowledge wasn't free and instant, it was a reward for a physical hunt. It made the facts feel heavy and important. Before Yelp or Google Maps, we had the Yellow Pages. It was a book the size of a brick made of thin yellow tissue paper. If you wanted a pizza, you didn't search "pizza near me." You sat on the floor, flipped to P, and looked at tiny black text until you found a number. You had to guess if the place was good based on how big their ad was. Scrolling was a physical activity that left yellow ink on your fingertips. In the 90s, you didn't know what your photos looked like for 3 days. You'd take a picture on a plastic disposable camera, finish the roll of 24, and take it to a pharmacy. You'd wait 72 hours, pay $5, and get that iconic yellow envelope. You'd open it in the car, heart pounding, only to find out 20 were blurry and one had a thumb over the lens. We didn't have filters, we just had hope. The biggest thing Gen Z can't relate to? The power of being completely unreachable. In 1995, if you walked out of your house, you were a ghost. No Find My Friends, no read receipts, no tracking pixels. You could sit on a park bench and just exist. There was a wall between your private life and the rest of the world. 1995 wasn't just a year, it was a sanctuary of mystery. If you like this video, leave a like and subscribe, and tell me what part shocked you the most in the comments. Click on the video on screen to keep watching.